The role that certificates of insurance play in design and construction is often misunderstood because many people place too much reliance on the fact that if they have a certificate of insurance, then they're going to have coverage. Now, we're all familiar with those certificates of insurance that a party will get from their insurance broker that lists out what sort of coverage they have, what are the amounts of the coverage. Sometimes it'll list an additional insured, sometimes it'll identify that there's been a waiver of subrogation, and those documents are very important to collect. I don't mean to suggest otherwise, but what a lot of people don't understand in the design and construction industry is that those certificates themselves confer no coverage. It's the policies in the endorsements underlying those certificates of insurance that confer coverage. And so while you may have a piece of paper that says that you're an additional insured or that the party that you've hired carries a certain amount of insurance, it's important to understand that those insurance certificates are nothing more than a snapshot in time. And so in a claim circumstance, when you reach into your file and you dig out that insurance certificate from several years ago, it's a mistake to think that there's necessarily going to be coverage. You know, I like to joke that it's not like the Back to the Future movies where Marty McFly's family disappears from the photograph over time. The ink on a certificate of insurance is not going to erase itself if the underlying coverage no longer exists. Okay? And so if you get an insurance certificate for a policy on Wednesday, you need to understand that that policy might not be there on Thursday. And because design and construction projects can stretch a number of years, it's not uncommon to be digging into files and finding certificates that are several years old in a claim situation, and then having to go about the exercise of finding out whether or not there really is any value to that certificate or not. It's also worth remembering that the coverage that is identified in the certificate of insurance, even if the policy continues to be maintained for years or whatever duration, the amount of coverage available might be depleted through the payment of other claims made against the policy or through the payment of attorney's fees and costs associated with defending the insured from a claim. And believe me, if you require somebody by contract to carry a policy of insurance, and then for some reason they let you down, either because the policy isn't maintained from year to year or because the amount of coverage is used up for another claim, you're not going to be very satisfied to make a breach of contract claim against them for not carrying insurance. Because the whole reason that you want insurance is because you want it to backstop a party's obligations. And claims for failing to buy or maintain insurance coverage typically tend to be worthless in and of themselves. So what are the best practices here? Absolutely to collect insurance certificates. It starts with a good contract. You have a good contract in the design and construction industry that's going to identify with specificity the kinds of insurance that's required, the amounts of insurance that's required, is there a waiver of subrogation, who are the additional insureds. You want to see a certificate of insurance. But that is only the first step in a series of steps that you're going to want to take throughout the life of the project and afterwards in order to do what you can to increase the odds that if you ever need to call on that insurance, you're not going to be disappointed to find that the coverage that's set out in the certificate of insurance is illusory because there is no actual policy standing behind that certificate of insurance.